Temu or Tame different?
Temu is correct.
Yes.
Slick Dog was the impetus of popping music as we know it today, right? He was the one that took the beautiful compositions of funk music and turned it into this abstract Picasso in a form of a raw energy, really just deadpan blues scales and just giving it to you just raw.
Yeah.
And that really hit me hard. I heard, of course, Battle Cat was like a god to me, right? Most beautiful thing I'd ever heard in my life. But something about this Slick Dog guy brought up something primal in me. And you can see it on everybody else when they would dance, People go crazy when Slick Dog comes on. And that was the beginning of, popping music as we know it, right? You had Legend of Beat Slayer coming in, you had Shashu coming in right after that, and bringing in this really raw, distorted, pumped, just, heavily compressed sound. And the more I got into that and heard that, I was like, yo, you know what? I think I could do that, man. I like this. This is really nice. It just feels good, and it was just watching the reaction of all these dancers and trying to musically try to find that target, while at the same time seeing if I can satisfy myself as a dancer to provide myself my own music, right? To get this thing that nobody else can get. You can't get it anywhere else. So you got to make it, right? Some people did it by sampling, they'll sample a song and loop it and stuff like that and come up with something cool. But there was something about these custom-made popping songs that just did it. And I think I probably started with I had a couple of old attempts, but I think my first one two of them that really kind of like made headway was one called The Omen and another one called Funk Over Egypt.
Yeah.
So those two I made almost 20 years at this point. I mean, and it's crazy because people still dance to it like it's brand new, and that I'm really I'm real. It's really meta, actually. It's really it's a real meta experience because I spent all this time watching and listening and watching these dancers and getting inspired from watching them get hyped to music that I never heard before. So I go and chase after the music and then try to make the music myself to get myself hyped. And then I keep going through that whole circle. Now I'm watching dancers get hyped to my music and I'm seeing them do stuff I've never even thought of before. I'm like, man, I need to listen to this song again. Maybe, it's really like fourth dimensional sort of outside looking in experience, being both a dancer and a producer, and so yeah, my approach has usually been about trying to bridge this gap between really this sort of raw elements of raw, visceral, primal sounds, whether it can be something melodic. It's usually in the bass for me, or something in the percussion and the drums, and then trying to marry that with something very, very beautiful and very, flying and something that tries to elicit emotion, right? And so I'm using very traditional tools to try to get you to get up and dance, but also I want you to be able to sit down and feel at the same time, right? So that's kind of my approach every time.
I see. So the question and what I'm slowly working on is, working on how do I appease the musical self in me as well as the dancer in me. And I was wondering if you have had to deal with the same thing, or did you already mentally understand that, like, no, I just need to put that raw feel from the jump?
That's a good question. I think my entire goal and my goal of in terms of the goal that I have of the approach that I wanted to be able to form is predicated on Michael Jackson. It's based on Michael Jackson.
Interesting.
So just think about a Michael Jackson show, right? Think about if you watch a show from him, you think about the repertoire and the stages of energy that he's going through when he does it, how he starts, when he does his fast songs, when he does his slow songs, and how he ends. This is a very, very traditional approach for many artists during his day. For many bands, for many groups, not even just funk or R&B, for many groups. And what only thing that he did was he kind of turned it up. He kind of turned up the tempo a little bit. I would say that would probably be the only difference. Just turned it up a little bit. So what watching him was about trying and marry this thing of where I can use dancing and singing and my musicianship in tandem. And there could be cases where it makes you, slow down or chill or even and relax. But for the most part, it was about power. It was about just slamming you to death and give you a quick minute to breathe with a slow song. But otherwise, I am beating you upside the head. That has always been my approach because that was what I idolized in Michael Jackson and James Brown for the most part. It's beating you upside the head nonstop. And so that was kind of my approach. I always want to try to get you to just groove. At the very least, you're grooving hard. 9 out of 10 times you're going to want to dance. Especially if you just turn up the tempo a little bit, you're definitely going to want to dance. So I've always been trying to marry that. That's and so I got to a point where I was able to find sort of a pathway where it didn't matter what tempo I wanted to play at, or what kind of emotion I wanted to to elicit. That baseline, that base foundation, those fundamentals for me are always there without even me thinking about it. So in a very, it sounds like, it may sound like a little snobby, but that really comes natural to me now. Like that is just very easy for me now to do just about anything in a way that makes somebody want to dance. That's kind of just what my whole thing is built on, because I always wanted to be able to use my ability to dance and sing and play music as a trifecta weaponry. Like that was in a very similar way. I am a competitive person in a very delusional way. I wanted to one up Michael Jackson, right? I wanted to one up him, right? So he can dance and sing, well, I can dance, sing, and play this, that, and the third, right? That was kind of my thought, right? So I'm a Michael Jackson clone, straight up, and James Brown. It's especially when it comes to me as an artist, like a solo artist, that's my approach. I'm trying to bridge that gap of dancing and music and power, all the time, for sure.
Wow. Okay, that's a really interesting perspective when it comes to power. So, just so I understand, you're more so talking about how it's not necessarily about the chord progressions per se, or the way that you're singing. It's really what is the end goal that you want people to feel.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because
So,
Yeah, because that's, if I can do that, that satisfies me. And then that's how I can balance the two. That's how I can serve the people and serve myself, so to speak. Right? That's how I can make myself happy and make somebody else happy. Right? I want to make you feel something. And you say, oh, damn, I felt something. That's perfect. It worked out. Right? Instead of me being, I want to make me feel something by doing this, and somebody says, I don't really get it. It's like, dang, man. But now I make it my work to put the work on you, to put the work back on me. Right? So it becomes a synergy, symbiotic relationship, rather.
Yeah, very
right.
cyclical.
Yes.
No, that's good. That's hype. I want to get into an additional set of questions here. So I'm just going to go through some of the tracks, just maybe 3, including the recent one. So
okay, sure.
4. And I'm curious to know your thought process, like what you started with. Was it something you heard? So I'm going to start off with, it's not going to be in any particular order, but just a little more. Just a little more.
Okay, so just a little more. This is going to be a great one. Okay. So just a little more is more bounce.
This is intriguing.
It's not really that much more to it, actually. It's kind of like more bounce, the DLC, so to speak. More bounce, upgraded, kind of. And then I'm trying to. So, on a technical level, one thing I definitely did want to do, because that is something that I really like to do on most songs. So more bounce is mostly predicated on the blues scale. He uses blues scale and dominant chords. He'll use a lot of dominant sevenths on the guitars, and singing. He's doing a lot of blues with the talk box. I wanted to change it to get it all minor. That I really like. I just like stuff in minor. It's just a thing. Part of it is Battle Cat's fault. Partially because he's so good at that. He's so good at taking a song that's also stuff that's in minor. I mean, in major, but he does a lot of stuff in minor, and it just gets me every time. And he was a big impetus to that, but also, movie scoring and stuff like that. I just like stuff in minor. Batman, like I just love it. Anything in minor. So I like to try, especially if it's a song that's in major or kind of dominant blues scales or something. I like to change it and make it dark. And so that was definitely one goal in the approach for that track.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much the main thing, because there isn't really that much different in the elements of my song versus the original. It's just like I took the elements and just did this with it and just kind of offset everything in a weird way, right?
Interesting.
Right. But there's a relationship between that song and the one I just did. Right now.